Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Novena of Grace here at Divine Mercy. Sometimes during Mass, especially with the prayer of consecration, sometimes during that prayer, I make a mistake. That is, not saying I read the wrong word or something like that, but rather the mistake is that I give in to a temptation. And the temptation is that I put my attention on myself, rather than, in a way, trying to step aside and letting God do his work through me as a priest, through me as a Christian in other situations. And so, for example, sometimes during that prayer, I can think to myself, is my voice, does it sound strong enough? Or does my voice sound good? Or am I reading it at the right tempo so as to convey the meaning I want to convey? These questions themselves aren't so bad, aren't so scandalous, but yet I miss the point. It's not that I should pray those words badly, but rather my own performance shouldn't be my focus. My focus, rather, should be on him. It should be on the Lord. And so today, then, in the lives that God has given to us, I perceive each life as being an expression of the Father's love, that in each person we have our strengths and our weaknesses, or the gifts that we have. And as a Christian, we are to use these gifts. That is, we are to use our whole being in service of him. And that service of him is not reducible in an exclusive way to just doing our duty. There may be some days in which it feels like a duty or obligation, but in general, we understand it and we experience our service as being our own expression of love. Our own expression of love back to him. And so, what goes wrong with us? There's a passage we had this past week, I believe, in the daily Mass. And one day, the gospel was about a landowner who took this field, put a fence around it, put a watchtower in it, leased the land to tenants, and then he went to a distant country. And at the proper time, he sent a servant back to collect his share of the produce. So the tenants would work the land and give a portion to the landowner, the rest they would keep for themselves and to support their families. But when the tenants saw the servants come back for the portion of the produce that belonged to the landowner, they beat the servant and kicked him out. And so the landowner, when told, tried again. Again he sent a servant, and again unsuccessful. And so finally the landowner says to himself, well, I will send my son, and they will surely respect him. But when the tenants of the landowner's field saw the son come, the scripture says in the parable that Jesus gave, that the tenants said, the heir, let us kill him, and then the land will be ours. And so this parable that the Lord gave to us, which he addressed to the Pharisees and the scribes, we reflect on our own lives in which, like the tenants, maybe we look to our whole life and we make this mistake. We just think to ourselves that our lives are ours. They are for our use exclusively. They are for our ambitions exclusively. They're for our desires exclusively. They are for our wants and needs exclusively. They are for our praise and glory exclusively. However, our existence is dependent always upon God. I remember studying in philosophy that in order that we are each maintained in existence in this life for the life to come, that it means that of every moment in existence, God is thinking about the person. That each person is present in the mind of God. If we were ever not to be in God's mind, then we would cease to exist, that we are contingent upon Him. We depend upon Him. And so therefore, we understand in a way, though God has given to us each of our lives, and our lives are precious and sacred, in a general way, our lives are not our own, but our lives belong to Him. Sometimes maybe this sounds like a lack of gratitude on our part. Or maybe it sounds like a lack of appreciation of the beauty of human life. But I don't see it in that way. I think of that prayer of St. Ignatius of Loyola, the prayer called the Suscipe, or the Take, Lord, Receive, in which at the end of the spiritual exercises, Ignatius prays to the Father. He says, "Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will, all that I have and all I possess. You have given all to me. To you, O Lord, I return it. Do with it what you will. Grant me only your love and your grace, and I shall want for nothing more." And so this prayer of Ignatius, it's not that we return the gifts he has given, nor even return the wholeness of our lives back to him, and in a way in which we become disinterested in it, or that we are dissatisfied with it, sort of giving it to him and say, "You make something of it. I cannot." That's not really the meaning of the Suscipe. It's not a lack of gratitude. In fact, it is great gratitude. It recognizes that these gifts have been given. It recognizes that life itself, one's life, has been given. And so then that return is the person seeking to use it, to use one's gifts, to use one's life for God's glory, for God's praise. For in love we belong to him. I remember this Jesuit, maybe he's 30 years older than me or so, and he had a reputation, and still has, a reputation of being sometimes maybe a little arrogant, maybe a little over the top. And I remember him once saying to me, he said, "You know, I know sometimes I can be arrogant. Or sometimes I know I can be a little pompous or obnoxious, a little over the top. And while I wish that were gone from me," he said, "but in my life I've actually seen how sometimes God can even use my arrogance for good. That is, for the service of others. The service in some Jesuit institution." The point is not that something like arrogance is a good thing, but rather we give our whole selves to him, the good and the bad, the things we're proud of, the things we wish we were different. And God redeems us. He is redeeming us. And he can use anything for his glory, for the service of humanity. And so, like those tenants in that parable that the Lord gave us, sometimes we look and we just say, it's mine. But when you look at the big picture, it's not. It belongs to the one who has created it. And he has given it to us for our flourishing, for our enjoyment of the beauty of life that he so desires that we have. But we then take maybe a step that isn't demanded of, but we take it nonetheless. And that step that he doesn't demand of us, it's the step we want to take. And that step we want to take is to give it back, to return it, not to be free of it, but to use it to love him, to use it to serve him. And so, God bless, and I'll see you on day 6.